I've been contemplating this thing that God has spoke to me yesterday regarding the requirement for me to stand in faith without doubting. And that right there is kind of like taking it up a notch, taking me deeper into that standing in faith, because I mean there have been times where I've started to doubt and then I'm crying out to him. But he's telling me you have to stand and you have to believe in the things that I promised you, and you cannot doubt. You can't doubt at all. And I talked a little bit about it on a video yesterday. So I've been thinking about this and praying about it and journaling about it and thinking about the examples that he has placed before me. Thank God for those examples. We have to appreciate those offerings, those who have offered their lives for us. And I was thinking about Abraham and how Abraham just believed. It was like God said, you're going to sacrifice your son. God said, your 90-year-old wife is going to bear you a child. No questions. Abraham just believed. Then I was thinking about Jesus and the authority with which he spoke, and that really ticked people off, by the way. It made people mad that he spoke with authority, that he knew the truth and he would not even be swayed this way or that. And if someone said something incorrect, he would say, no, because of this, because this is what's written. You're not understanding correctly. And I was thinking about Jesus praying 3 times in the Garden of Gethsemane at this, he'd been poured out, offered his whole life. And at this very point, when he was going to be arrested and knew what he was going to be suffering, he prayed 3 times for it to be taken from him, yet not his will, but the Father's be done. And then I thought about David and how David was afflicted and how he never had rest from the sword, how he talked about aching in his bones, and Jeremiah, how they were digging a pit for him, his own friends, and they were sneering and talking behind his back, waiting for him to stumble, and Paul, and the thorn that he prayed 3 times for the Father to take away, and he was told, no, this is going to remain with you. My grace is enough. My grace is sufficient. This is required in order for my power to rest on you. You must remain weak. And a lot of times we act like, oh, well, that was just for Abraham, and that was just for Jesus, and that was just for David and Paul. No, actually, this is a description of what God's servants have to suffer. And I was sitting here thinking, man, I just had no idea. I had no idea when he called me. I mean, I thought I had some very different thoughts in my mind about what this was going to look like. And so I understand why, I get to certain points and he kind of, threshes me. And then he says, you still in this? Like, you still doing this? You going to turn back now? And I feel like that's one of the, that is what I'm experiencing right now. I'm at one of those threshing, crushing places, and he's testing me and he's asking me, what's it going to be? You still in this? You going to look back? Are you going to crumble? Are your roots going to scorch? Or are you going to dig deeper and plant those roots? And I was sitting with my daughter as Jeremiah was terrorizing us. Poor little Jeremiah is cutting some teeth right now. And all I hear when I bring him into the room to take a nap with his mom for at least a half hour is him just screaming. Not even like screaming like, not screaming like crying, but I'll hear him for like a half hour just terrorizing her in the bed. But anyway, I went in there and I was sitting on the bed with the 2 of them and I was asking her, what do you think it means to stand in faith? And she said a couple of really important things. She said, when you're standing, you can't stand in several directions or more than one direction. You can only stand in one direction at a time. And it reminded me of the 4 living creatures in Ezekiel, where the spirit is in their wheels and the wheels are facing in one direction and the direction is wherever the spirit goes. You can only be in one direction at any given time. And I know that I've got to be weak right now. I know that I have to be low. I know I have to be reliant and trusting in God. And he's got to be the only way I'm looking. I can't be looking in multiple directions. It's got to be one direction I've got to choose. Which way am I going to face? And she said, Mom, you should really do a video on rending your heart. And I said, I have done a video on rending your heart. And she said, that's such a part of this. Like this, it's such a huge part. And she said, I feel like people hear that term and they throw it around without actually having any substance, whatsoever to back up what they understand of it. They're not living it out. They're not really actually doing that in dire situations, really rending their heart where it's a matter of life and death, like it was for her and Jeremiah, or a matter of losing everything you have, like it is for me right now, or sacrificing your son, like it was for Abraham, or losing everybody you've known, like it was for Noah, and being mocked and being, ridiculed. People thinking you're crazy because you're waiting for something that they don't believe will happen, because you're waiting for a God that they don't believe exists. There's so much hope in the Bible, and I guess I'm more and more aware of it right now because I've been looking for that hope. Like, I keep searching for it every day. I'm like, okay, give me something to encourage me so that I can press on and I can really endure and remind myself of what you've done previously. There's so much hope and encouragement in the word and in the examples of his servants. And the issue is not reading the word with my carnality, but really rending my heart. Like, do I actually believe this? Do I actually believe that this God still exists today and that this God is active in my own life? And it really makes me appreciate the people who've gone before me, who have been offered before me in these ways. Because even though they were told certain things, like everybody thinks, and I thought this in the beginning too, oh, okay, like if that were me, like that would be epic, right? Like that would be, oh, this is going to be awesome. Whatever, God said, you've seen what you can do. Now you're going to see what I will do. And I was like, okay, let's do this. Yeah, well, I'm suffering in a totally different way from how I suffered before in the world. Believe me, I'd choose this over suffering in the world because there's an actual prize at the end of this. The world is just a trick. But this is a totally different way of suffering. This is like believing in what is unseen, believing that you have a future, that you have a country prepared for you. And you can't have it both ways. Like, you can't have your empire here and then have the kingdom there. You have to choose. I truly had no idea what he was going to do, but I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that he has helped me to rend my heart in times where I couldn't do it. And I would go to him and say, Lord, please turn my heart because I can't do it right now. It's too hard. I'm not there. Turn my heart. And then I would sit and read the scriptures and read examples of whatever it was that he was asking me to do, just like I'm doing right now, and work my heart into doing what he's asking me to do. Imagining what it must have been like for Abraham and Noah and Job, Jeremiah and Paul. I'm really grateful that the place that he gave me these offerings before, because when you're going through this, you're going to need to be able to do this very thing. Like, you're going to need to remember the things that I'm talking about right now, about rending your heart and standing in faith and looking just that one direction, not being double-minded, but single-minded for him, not looking back, not looking to the left or the right, but straight ahead and keeping your focus on him. Even when the rest of the world says you're nuts, you can't speak these things. Yeah, maybe there's freedom of speech, but not really. You can't say things like that. You can't refuse to do certain things. They're going to kill you. Or how will you make it? My daughter's getting a lot of flack for going to school and getting her doctorate, for 10 years, just like I did, and saying, you know what, this is not of God. I'm not going to do this. It doesn't matter how long I went to school. It doesn't matter how many hundreds of thousands of dollars of loan debt I have. And there's hundreds of thousands for both of us. But you know what? God will make a way. He always makes a way. We're promised in the word that we are not going to be tempted beyond being able to be rescued or escape that temptation. And the same thing goes for any position that we're in. He has not allowed us, we haven't gotten to a position that he cannot rescue us from. We're going to have to do the work, but there's always a way. There is always a way in him. And Jesus says anything is possible for those who believe, even raising people from the dead. Is that what we believe? Like, is that what's in our hearts, that we really believe that Jesus raised people from the dead? And if he can do that, he can fill up the pools of the earth without any rain. He can fill them up with water. Everything he says that's going to happen is going to happen. Then we can't look back and we can't look to the left. We can't look to the right, but we have to stand and face forward, knowing what he has said. And every time the enemy tries to say, well, such and such, you're dumb, you're an idiot, why would you think he'd do this for you? I mean, these are all the kinds of things that he says, aren't they? Who are you that he would do anything for you? Well, I mean, it isn't really about who am I, because I'm no one. It's because of who he is, because he promised, and because he loves and respects and honors those who love, respect, and honor him. And even though I love, respect, and honor him, it's still nothing that I deserve, but because of his righteousness and because he is not a man that he should lie. He will fulfill. There is coming a day when he is going to do exactly what he said he's going to do, and I'm waiting, but he's doing something right now with me. And so all day long, this is what I'm doing, is rending my heart back to what his word says and what I know and what he has promised me. All day long, I'm doing that. And as time goes on, some things get easier and some things get harder. But the solution is always the same. Go back to him, return to his word, rend my heart to what it is that he has said, what he has promised, who he is, and what he's done. I hope that encourages you.